Through the process of fermentation. And fermentation is simply the act of taking sugar and turning it into alcohol. Now, in our case, because we're starting with sugar, that's easy squeezy. But if you were talking about wine, for example, wine's made from grape juice usually. That grape juice naturally has sugar in it. And that sugar is where we're going to get our alcohol from. So, what we're doing here is we're getting our sugar cane and our molasses and our water, and we're putting it all in here, and then we have a sugar water. Well, we turn that sugar into alcohol. And the way all alcohol is made is with the assistance of a magical little creature. We use a magical little creature to create every drop of alcohol on the face of Earth, and this magical little creature we call yeast. Yeast eats sugar as its food source, and as the yeast eats that sugar to survive, its digestive system breaks that sugar down into two main components. The main component is what we want, that's alcohol, and that stays in here in liquid form. The other main component is carbon dioxide, or CO2 gas. So as that yeast is eating that sugar, it's burping out a bunch of CO2, and it's beginning to carbonate this liquid right here. In your bottle of sparkling wine or your can of beer that's got some fizziness to it, that CO2 is created by the yeast. It's just a byproduct of fermentation. It's naturally there. So as this is carbonating, it would begin to pressurize these vessels, and we don't want that to happen. It could cause them to explode. We need a way to let the extra pressure blow out. And that's why we have these hoses here. These hoses are just dipped in buckets of water. It's a very, very simple one-way check valve. It lets extra pressure blow out and prevents oxygen from coming back in and contaminating your fermentation. So it's just like blowing bubbles in your milk. It's a one-way check valve. It takes about 1 to 2 weeks for the yeast to eat all of the sugar in here. After the yeast has consumed all of the sugar, we're going to have about 8% alcohol. 8 to 10% alcohol. And at that point, we now essentially have a sugar wine. We call it a sugar wash or a rum wash. So at that point, the yeast is done. Now we use a Caribbean-style rum yeast. This rum yeast is designed in a lab for producing rum in the Caribbean. And as they grow this yeast in a lab, they actually raise it on molasses. Molasses is what the yeast is already, its diet is already acclimated to. So by us using that molasses along with our sugar, it actually acts like a multivitamin for our yeast. And that makes the yeast nice and happy happy yeast makes good rum. So that's ultimately, I don't make the alcohol, but the yeast does. So we want to make sure the yeast is very happy. If the yeast isn't happy, it doesn't have what it needs. It's just like any living creature, it's going to adapt to its new environment, it's going to form mutations. And those mutations are going to create flavors that we don't necessarily want in our final product. So we want to make sure all the conditions are best for the yeast. So after about 2 weeks, there should be no sugar left in here. It's about 8 to 10% alcohol, so it's like the same strength as a strong beer. You could drink a couple pints of this stuff and you get pretty fucked up. But unless you just love the flavor of molasses, this stuff sucks. You do not want to drink it. It is not good at all. But it's the alcohol that's in there. That's what we want. So each one of these has 100 gallons. You're looking at 200 gallons between the two of them. But in 100 gallons of 8 to 10% alcohol, it means 8 to 10 gallons of pure alcohol in each one of these. But we need to separate that out. If you were a brewery or a winery up to this point, you're done. Brewery, winery, distillery up to this point is really we all do the same thing. We're taking sugar from some source. Winery, you're using fruit like grapes. Brewery, you're using grain like malted barley. But we're using yeast to turn the sugar that's found in that into alcohol. Brewery or winery at this point, what's in this fermenter is what would go into your bottle as your finished product. Finished, done. A distillery, we're just getting started. The alcohol has now been created, so that from this point on, it's a process of refining that alcohol or separating that alcohol from everything else. So that 8% alcohol in there, we want that. We want to leave the 92 gallons of everything else that's behind. And the way we're going to do that is with a still. So we're going to pump that 8 to 10% alcohol rum wash into the still right here. And this is going to help us remove that alcohol. This is a pot still. This is the oldest form of distillation, really. And it's really the most simple form of distillation. And the reason why we're still using this old style still is it's inefficient. We want that inefficiency. That inefficiency of this old style still lets the flavor come through the distillation process. We use such awesome cane sugar and molasses to make our rum. We want that flavor from the cane sugar and the molasses to be showcased in our final product. And so in order to do that, we need to use an inefficient style still. There's plenty of other types of stills that I'm not going to get into, but we still use an old style still for that reason.